I love the beach. You all know that. And every time I go to the beach, I get one of those mystery, suspense, intrigue, espionage novels and read it. I have a blast. That's about all I do on vacation. Let me show you my favorite one. Robert Ludlum's The Bourne Identity. Anybody read this book? If you haven't, read it. It's a great story, John. And I don't know, folks, whether I live vicariously through these characters or not. It's probably one I have a very vivid imagination. You don't have to agree with that, George. This is a great story. It's about a guy who was found in the sea and he lost all of his memory. He was a spy for one of those super spy networks, and people are trying to kill him, and they're after him all around the world, and you don't know if he's going to survive. There are 535 pages to this book. And I read on that trip all 535 pages, and it's not until you get to the end of the book do you know that Jason Bourne survives. 535 pages. In case I missed it the first time, I read it again. 7 times I read this book. 7 vacations. You can see it's dog-eared. You can see it's ripped. I know Jason Bourne backwards and forwards. When the movie came out, I knew exactly what the book didn't say that the movie did. 7 times, 535 pages. I can tell you that the last 6 times were different than the first one. Why? Because I knew how it ended. How many of you, let's be honest, this is church after a while, folks. How many of you have ever read a book and looked at the last chapter first? Raise your hands. How many of you have ever read the same book 7 times? Like me. We got some fools in this congregation. That's good. This is a great book. But it makes a difference if you know how it ends, doesn't it? It is one of the most important moments in the life of the Jewish people. And it is recorded in the 2nd chapter of 2 Samuel. Let me read these verses to you. There are only 2 of them. God is talking about David. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever, and your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before me. Your throne shall be established forever. God in this chapter is making an everlasting promise of David to become an everlasting king, and it came true. For 100 years, from the reign of Saul and David and Solomon, Israel was the greatest nation on earth. As numerous, says Genesis, as the stars in the sky. And then it fell apart. In 721, the northern kingdom was destroyed by the Assyrians. And in 587, that's BC, of course, the southern kingdom is destroyed by the Babylonians. Did God renege on his promise? Was God not powerful enough to keep it? What's going on here? Had you been a Jew, don't you think you would have wondered and worried and been afraid? It got worse. In the text before the one that we just read this morning, Jesus predicts the destruction of the temple of Solomon. It is the only place that a Jew can legitimately worship God. And Jesus predicts that it will be destroyed, and he was right. Those of you know who your history, in 70 A.D., the Roman Empire marched into Jerusalem and burned the temple to the ground. And then Jesus continues. Nation shall rise up against nation, and there will be earthquake and famine and persecution and all pestilence. What happened to the promise? Don't you think those Jews would have been wondering and worried and afraid? Aren't you? To famine and persecution and pestilence and earthquake, we could add health care and cancer and suicide and job loss. And a list about 150 miles long. It doesn't seem to be getting any better, folks. It seems like it's more of the same. Except for one thing. And this is key. Except for one thing.